Let's do it. Alrighty, here we go. My name is Marty Fox from WHITEFOX. Now, here's the deal.
Welcome to another episode of With the Fox, with of course myself, Shura Taft, and Marty Fox. And I want to say that the man we've got on the podcast today knew this was coming, but that would be a very obvious joke to me because it's very exciting to have him here and delve a little deeper into what he does because it's a fascinating world. David the medium, you are a psychic, you're a clairvoyant, you are a lot of things. And it's very exciting to have you here because I think it's really interesting to delve into what you actually do. So thanks for being with us.
Great to be here. Very excited to be a guest. Thank you.
Of course, Marty's known you a long time. Marty, you...
No, so what's quite funny about, David the medium, clairvoyancy, in this world of, spiritual awareness is, what I call it. I actually grew up with it. And as a very, very young child, I was exposed to going to clairvoyance, my mum being very spiritual, my mum telling stories of how, her and her mum and her grandmother were all very, connected and could see things. And, it was something that was never foreign to me, So when I met David, being similar age and, being introduced by Lana, it was just something I was just really interested to know a little bit more about. Charlotte and I had been to clairvoyance ever since we'd been together. So it was more excitement around, getting to know you and unpacking more of this type of spirituality, which that's what it is, honestly.
So let's start from the start.
Yeah.
A little bit about yourself. I know you've probably told this story many times to people on podcasts and in events and whatnot, but can you give us a little insight into your upbringing and where this all began? I know it wasn't like you just started as a child and no. I saw things, and I remember talking to you about the fact that this came later in life to you. Yeah. So tell us about your upbringing and your background.
Yeah, very different from who I am now, that's for sure. So predominantly as an adult, my background is corporate. Like I worked in corporate legal for 12 years and I'm in my mid-30s now, but as soon as I left school I was in that sort of field, and I wasn't raised religious. I didn't have a view necessarily of the afterlife, and it was just something that I was never really exposed to. Like I was very black and white, especially for a lot of my 20s, like not only working in legal but very interested in politics and just sort of the world and just sort of the black and white of how life was. And yeah, it was something for me that I had never personally experienced. Like as a child, I wasn't one that saw spirits at the end of the bed or never really had, visitations in the middle of the night or anything like that. But one thing in hindsight that I definitely reflect on, especially as a teenager, like my intuition and my gut feelings were always very strong, but I just thought everyone had that. I didn't realize mine were necessarily any different. But yeah, fast forwarding to my mid-20s, I had just started a new job and there was a lady there and we got talking very deeply, very quickly about sort of spiritual themes, and it was never anything that I had exposure to. I didn't really have any opinions on it. And long story short, she was like, have you ever been to a medium? I was like, not really my thing. I wasn't skeptical, but I wasn't just exposed to it ever.
Sure.
I just didn't really have a view of the afterlife. And went and saw her. She blew my mind by the stuff that she was bringing up already, like within the first minutes, about, family members of mine that had crossed over. And she said to me, probably in the first 10, 15 minutes of me being there, she says, you realise you can do this? And I was like, I was very obnoxious in my early 20s as well. Like, like I said, anything that I saw is what it was.
Hey, we still are. We still are.
So, to hear something like that, I was like, well, she's right about a lot of things, but she's definitely wrong about that. Like, there's no way I could do this. Like, I don't even know whether I believe in it, even though she's just kind of blown my mind. And she ran a mentoring class, really wanted me to come along, and ended up going along. It was very casual. Like, we were in her house in Berwick on a Wednesday night, just hanging around the couch. Like, very casual. And lo and behold, in that environment, when I was able to get up and sort of been shown the ropes in some ways, it was a very natural connection. And I know we've talked about this as well, but I believe every single person can do what I do. There's nothing necessarily special or gifted about my ability. I'm a very strong believer that we're all souls having a human experience, not the other way around. And everyone has natural ability. Like everyone can sing, not everyone sounds like Pavarotti. And did mentoring with her for a few years, still working in corporate at the same time. So it kind of was like two different roads with a mediumship in the middle.
A mediumship, not
like
median.
Very connected.
Yeah.
And I the path that I'm on now, I never saw as anything that was going to occur the way that it did. Like, we're all taught at a very younger age, how life has to be, or you have to work a 9 to 5, you have to view life this way, you've got to do the mortgage, you've got to do this, you've got to live life like this. So to break out of that sort of system, just never anything I thought was possible. If anything, I saw sort of my psychic mediumship and spirituality is more, in some ways, kind of like a party trick. Like, it was never anything I thought was...
Well, everyone wants to, like, play with it, don't they?
Exactly right. So, kept working in corporate up until 30. Life threw me in another direction. Not that I was opposed to it necessarily, just never saw it as an opportunity. And here we are now, doing David the Medium professionally for coming on 8 years.
And so that's because, you would have had... Do you remember your first ever client that you had a reading with?
Yep.
Who was that?
So it was actually a friend's mother. And because after I'd been doing workshop for a few years and I realised I had a very natural ability and gift, it was more of just a curiosity. Like, I started reading friends, like, people that I felt comfortable around that I didn't necessarily know their life story or know their families or anything like that. And it was a friend of mine who actually recommended her mother, because she's like, my mum actually wants to see you. And I was like, oh, yeah, why not? And sat down with her, and she said, and this was kind of like my first proper client, she says, you need to do this professionally. Like, that was really good. And I was like, yeah. So then
So obviously it went well, because that's the thing, sometimes try things and it doesn't necessarily go the way you thought.
No.
And then it was just through word of mouth that it just grew and grew. And at the peak, which I'd say now is the peak, but maybe you've probably turned down a few more new clients because you're doing other things, but at the peak, like, how many people were you seeing a week?
Yeah, on average about 20 to 25 clients a week. Yeah, so I do anywhere from 4 to 5 a day and work from Monday to Friday.
Yeah, and that's quite amazing, because for something that was never your life or your income, I mean, it's also a business. You're one thing that I've always noticed with you, you're also very business savvy. Like, this isn't just some make-believe gift. You're actually gifting people the ability to get closure in a lot of areas of their life, which takes a lot of energy from you. And I've seen you after particular readings, and you were depleted. You have no energy. It's like you've run a half marathon.
What happened to that?
No, but as in, I also saw you after your first ever live event, and there was just so much energy in one room, which we'll get to in a moment. But it is quite amazing how you have that business brain, but you then have this very connected spiritual brain. And you've somehow found a happy medium where both can coexist because of what you're giving to people, and the experience that they're having in those readings makes them want to come back and just reconnect, whether it be once a year or twice a year. Do you see that regular?
Absolutely. And one of my biggest things is well, like, I really do want to bring down the wall between, spirituality and, like, normal life, or the corporate life as well. So even from a business savvy perspective, I mean, I still grew up in the normal world. Like, I had a job that was considered very, corporate and very sort of mainstream. And, that's my whole goal. I really do want to break down the barrier between mainstream and spirituality, because it's not as woo-woo as most people expect it to be, or their preconceived ideas of what it really is. So I was fortunate to sort of have that, stereotypical life, where then I could use that as a real sounding board and a grounder to then be able to bring spirituality into that. Present it different.
I find funny though, there are people that are just on both sides of the fence. They either believe or they don't. And then if they see, there's a saying which is seeing is believing. And I was lucky to be at this live event, and I think those that have a session with you, they then leave and then they go, okay, there's no way that he could have said these things, because there's no way that he could have known. And what's it like when you have those types of clients that just don't believe in it, and then you've had a session and you've literally taken their breath away by what you've said from family members that have passed? What's that experience like? What normally comes from those sessions?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like, I can appreciate skepticism, because I essentially was one at the very start as well. So I can already understand the mindset or the viewpoints that people come into that with. I think when people sit down for a reading with me, in the circumstances that you just mentioned, when I'm presenting information to them or connection to them that they can't logically understand, I mean, I think the human brain, for all of us, instantly goes into the element of, like, protection, trying to work out why, how would they know that? And, the instant reaction is to automatically think, well, there's some sort of fraudulent, or they Google you or whatever it is, that I say to everyone, like, you don't have to believe in what I do. Listen to what I say and make up your own mindsets from that. Like, and if I'm telling you things that not only that no one else knows, but you might not have actually even said it out loud. Spirit sometimes brings up things that we're thinking. Then you have to make up your own mindset from that. There is just so much more to the world.
Well, I remember I saw you after my grandmother had passed away, and your eyes were shut, and
I know what you're going to bring up. I can see it in my head already.
And you literally started laughing. You went, no, and you're laughing. I'm like, why are you laughing? And he said, your grandmother has said, Martin, stop weeing on the blue soap. And you're like, I've never said that sentence in my life. What does that mean?
Haven't said it since either.
And you haven't said it since. And I just freaked out because my bubba, she died suddenly. The first thing that I would do at my bubba's is I'd go into the house, I'd give her a kiss and a cuddle, and I'd run straight to this particular toilet where she had this big thing of blue soap in the porcelain, and I'd pee all around it, and I'd make it blue, and I'd leave. And I did it as a kid because I used to shit it, and it was funny, and she'd chase after me and go, Martinko, flush the toilet. But that was the thing that I had with my bubba, and there is no possible way that you could have known that that's what she said. And it's those moments that then from that moment on, your shoulders drop and you go, well, what else is there? And it's those moments that I think really convert those people, because seeing is believing, and that's when that moment happens.
And I still think, regardless of your perspective or your viewpoints, there is always that natural curiosity.
Well, you just naturally think everyone's full of shit.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I am a skeptic. I'm more skeptical than you, but it's not like I'm a non-believer in the sense that I'm okay with being given information and being able to make my own mind up on it. There's things out there that I look at and go, and come on. But having never had a session with you, I can't comment. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't believe in what you do, because that would be unfair to judge you without seeing that. To you, when you sit with someone like me, for example, or there's people in this office, I know Marty would love you to sit with Rory, for example, our CFO, but people like that who probably come from more a skeptical background, is your goal, I'm sure you're not sitting there going, I'm going to try and convert you. Your goal is just to say, hey, this is what I see, this is what I hear, make your mind up. Is that what's your mindset coming, if you're facing someone like myself, who you probably think, he's thinking, this is woo-woo, or whatever. What are you thinking?
Well, even from my own perspectives has evolved over the years as well, because at the very start, I did want to try and convert people. I'm like, no, this is how it is, this is how it should be. Like, look at how it can handle your life. I'm at the stage now where, I understand it enough, and I understand the benefits that it has for everyone enough that if people don't believe, I'm like, well, not my job to convert you then. You can have your own journey. There's your own pathways that you're on. There's things that you're maybe missing out on in some ways as well by not sort of delving into it. But from my perspective now, I've pretty forgot what was the question.
No, but I guess
when you meet people that are skeptic, or even when you're early in your career, the biggest thing for you would have been trying to convert them into believing, because it's the start of something for you. The question is more about now, when you meet those people, how do those readings go? Because you'll know straight away that it would have been word of mouth, or someone would have booked a session for them. How do those readings go for those people that are naturally born with that skepticism? And they're normally analytical people. They're normally people that don't just go off on a whim.
No. Well, I mean, first and foremost, even at this stage, if they are coming to see me, because there are skeptics who will completely avoid it. So if they're coming to see me first and foremost, and there's the open-minded skepticism anyway. So I find that they're not the natural skeptics, because they want to be shown things, they want to hear things, or they want to have that connection. They kind of want that proof already that they're seeking by coming to see me to automatically maybe even change the way that they're thinking. So I've never had any real resistance.
But do you think they could, because there are roadblocks that the skeptic could put up to you, which is saying, no, that doesn't relate. No, sorry, I don't know that person, or whatever. Whether that's true or not, they can actually just roadblock the whole thing.
One thing that I remember you said to me, I don't know if it was whether we were sitting on the couch having a vino and a few oysters. That sounds a bit funny, but that's why Charlotte and I love having you over for some oysters and some wine and cheese. But when the hairs go up on your back, when you get the goosebumps, when you get that bad gut feel, when something's NQR, that is the body reacting to a feeling, whether it be spiritual or someone's vibe or someone's aura, that can't be seen, but it can be felt. And you said if those things can happen, then it's also how you connect with those spirits. It's just that you're seeing a little bit more clearer.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, everything is energy, and that's not a spiritual tenet. Like, science understands everything is energy. So, to bring in the spirituality part of that as well, like, everything does set off a vibe. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, the body will still react to it, because it's kind of like radio waves. It's like different frequencies that float around. So listening to your body first and foremost is the most important thing, because it's going to tell you things that maybe the mind or the eyes haven't seen. So, to even use that as an example, I mean, that's the thing. We walk into rooms and suddenly the vibe will change for us, or we'll get a nervousness or an anxiousness. We can all have examples where we're around certain people and we just instantly know that they're not the kind of art person.
But is that, so for you, where does your, I don't want to call it a power, but where does your medium sense, your clairvoyance, all that sort of stuff start and end? Because obviously you're reading other people. For you personally, is it that whole thing? Is your entire life based around a feel, like when you walk into an office or when you go to a job interview or when you meet someone for the first time? Is it always there? What is the sense? Where are you getting this sort of energy from?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I am two different people. Like, I'm definitely David the medium, and I'm also David majority of the time. So I can walk down the street, I can connect with just random people as David, and I won't feel the thing. For me, the way that I describe it kind of is like tuning in a radio. And spirit's also very respectful. Like, they know when I'm, Verticom is working and when I'm not as well.
Right.
So if I'm having dinner with friends or I'm walking down the street, I won't feel a thing. You do get the sort of the natural senses, again, like if you walk into a building or you meet people for the first time. But I think a lot of that's human nature that we all build on as well.
It's so interesting what you said about that, like how, you're working, you're connected, you're receptive. Because I saw this. Who's making all those noises?
Streets.
Oh.
The main streets of Toorak.
I'm worried about parking my car right there.
So, yeah, when you zone in, like when I saw you walk out in front of 300 people, finished your introduction, and you started essentially working, turning the receptors on, and information was coming to you. Talk us through the visual sort of layout. Like, what do you see? Because I saw you transform, and 300 people saw you genuinely have conversations with their loved ones. And you were sending messages to the people in the crowd to the point where there wasn't a dry eye in that entire theatre. You were explaining in detail how they had passed away, the circumstances, what they missed, what their loved ones were going through, how they wish that they were there, what advice they would give. And that can't be researched, that can't be scripted. And it was so organic and real in that moment. I would love to know, now that I've got you on the couch, what do you see? Like, what? Because your eyes are shut and you're talking in such detail to these people.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Well, first and foremost, when someone crosses over, like, this is a scientific thing again, the energy of who we are, our memories, our personalities, it doesn't just cease to exist. It becomes in the air, for want of a better phrase. Like, it doesn't ever disappear. So as a medium...
Hey, so just on that, because that's quite interesting. I've been to a few open casket funerals, and it doesn't look like they're sleeping. They actually look dead.
Just thought, the energy's left.
The energy is left. You can see that the energy's left. When I walk in and I see somebody sleeping, they don't look dead.
No.
They actually look sleeping.
Yeah.
So there is a big difference in that soulless body, and it's very confronting. So I fully believe that once that person is gone, something does leave. I can see it.
Yeah, the soul.
The soul is gone.
Yeah. Because, anatomically, we're all built exactly the same. Like, we've all got 2 legs, 2 arms. Well, not 2 arms. Some people maybe have 2 arms. But, the energy of who we are makes us so different because, we're all men, but we're all completely different. So that's our energy. So when that crosses over, or the body ceases to be alive, the energy flows out and it goes into different frequencies. So as a medium, when I tune into that, because it doesn't ever disappear, and to translate that into English, it just means our loved ones are always around us. That's what I always tell everyone. So when I connect into it, I have the ability to see, hear, and feel. So to translate that, the scene is fascinating. So spirit will sometimes show me home movies in my head, like I'll see things that are relevant to their lives. To use my live show, for example, I could close my eyes and I would picture the exact same audience, but suddenly there'd be someone standing in front of me, and that would be them. Now, sometimes you don't see them as clearly as I'm seeing both of you. It can actually just be an outline, but you know that it's like an older man, or you know it's a younger female, whatever it may be. But their hearing is, I can hear their voices, or they will use my own inner voice to talk to me. I can hear music playing, I can hear sounds like if someone's like, any coffee machine, just general noises. And the feeling is, not only can I feel their energy in their soul, but if they had a heart attack, my heart will get sore. If they're relaying emotion around stories that they're also showing me, I will feel the emotion behind it. So all these energies that I'm connecting with, it is already around us. Like I said, it's just my ability to tune the radio frequency into it to then be able to connect with it. And everyone has that ability.
But so if you're doing it, let's say you're sitting one-on-one with Marty, that's very different to being in a room with 300 people. So if you're sitting with Marty, you're calling on his spirits or whatever else. When you're in a room, are you just getting like how is that? Yeah. Are you focusing in on a single, or is it just coming to you and there's a few, okay, where is Maria? Because I know that,
It was quite unique because, to be fair, I could feel your nerves at the start of the show. Like there was that anxious. Was either nerves or just like you were anxious to get into it?
I was anxious.
You were anxious to get into it. So excited.
Yeah.
And then it was like you transformed. The moment you shut your eyes and you had connected, and you started speaking, you're like telling the story of who you were talking to, but you also felt where their living connection was. You were pointing to the area. And it was correct on nearly all of the occasions. Who you were talking to was pointing you to the particular area, and we were getting names and backgrounds just absolutely nailed. How do you get to that detail?
It's fascinating because there's not a real logical way to explain it. The way that I kind of look at it, it's kind of like someone sat down with me 5 minutes before my live show and they kind of gave me like the game plan. Like, okay, this is who you're going to read, this is what you're going to tell them. It's like I've already known it. Or it's like it's already been told to me. Because when I connect with it, it's their stories. And I'm suddenly a part of that. And I'm taken into it. And as the medium, I'm the medium messenger. So, to use my live show as an example, I kind of had a bit of a game plan with Spirit before I went out there as well. I was like, all right, guys, we're going to be doing this. There might be 300 people in the audience, there's 800, 900 I'm there at least.
And you were having a little chat backstage.
I'm in my head.
What were you saying?
I couldn't hear them, but I was like, guys, we're going to get out on stage. And I knew that they were going to be respectful. Like, I know I'm not going to hear 400 voices all at once yelling at me, but I said, we'll take it in turns, like, just come forward one at a time kind of thing.
You were saying this to yourself?
Basically in my head. Like, I mean, didn't know it was fucking going to work or not, but like... So I kind of had that intention setting, for want of a better phrase.
So this was your first group, this is the first time you've ever had...
The first proper one like that. That sort of smaller things. But yeah, this was the first real sort of big show.
And what's so unique about the big show is that, again, very risky. It wasn't cheap. It was an expensive show to go to. There was 300 people in the crowd. There's, a lot of revenue off the back of that. But then there was 300 people that left that all said, he has to do that in every state. That had to be filmed. That had to be broadcast. That had to be, like, witnessed. You had 300, honestly, like, disciples that were just mind-blown. Freaking out that your detail actually was there. And when I left, I said to Charlotte, I was like, fuck, I think David's going to blow up. If he did that in an arena with thousands of people, you'd have thousands of people that would just leave and go, how did he do that?
I was also present on a call, won't say who, with someone who called Marty, who had a reading with you, whose mind was blown. Remember? And this person was like, there's no way I've had this conversation with Marty. There's no way he'd know this. And David knew all this stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And this person was
He called me and said, hey, did you fucking speak to David the medium? I'm like, dude, first of all, fuck you on about it. He goes, I had a reading with David and he's just blown my mind. Did you talk to him? I was like, no, maybe like 3 weeks ago, but not about you, mate. And he wasn't he in shock?
He was in shock.
And this guy's probably on the corporate ladder, one of the biggest heavyweights there is. I'm not going to even say the state that he's in, but he's also not very, spiritual or, as what people would call wishy-washy or, however you want to, determine your belief system. And he freaked out. Yeah.
Do you mind me asking, have you lost many people in your life? Have you had many?
I've been quite fortunate to be very fair. Like at my age, in my mid-30s, like I've lost the grandparents.
Yes.
That's all.
No, I'm the same. I'm the same. Because I'm curious. I was like, if you've lost friends or family members, whether you're immediately aware.
Yeah.
Is it how quick is it? Is it like they've passed and I know that I'll see that person or hear that person at some stage?
I never talked about this on the podcast. This is great. So, my grandfather, he passed. This is terrible. I want to say 2 years ago, but it might have even been last year, to be fair. And he was 99. He had severe dementia.
99. How annoying is that?
My dad's side of the family, they live forever. They're elephants.
No, but
he was 3 months off 100. Even 3 months, 2 months off 100.
Mine got to 103. It was pretty amazing.
103?
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I've got him for a long time.
Yeah. You got long time, yeah. Anyway, so go on.
Yeah, we knew that he was going to cross over.
Sure.
And, the days leading up to his passing, I actually went to the care home that he was in and visited him and, and I'm completely off topic, but when people have Alzheimer's or dementia, towards the very end of their time on Earth, they actually want to reference catching public transport constantly. And I remember sitting down with my grandfather and, you didn't even recognise who my brother and I were at the very start, but then he started saying, I need to get the train. And I said to him, I was like, it's all right, the train's waiting for you. Don't worry, you're not going to miss the train. And he's like, oh, good. But anyway, not long after that meeting, he passed away. It was about 36 hours later. And I had this vivid as hell dream that night, the day that he actually crossed over, or that you crossed over the night, that I remember I was in Malibu in California on one of those beautiful beach homes, and I just walked out onto the balcony and both my grandparents were in banana lanterns. My grandmother had already passed by this stage. And I remember just looking at them holding hands, and they were married for 73 years. They were together for a very long time. And they were just holding hands, looking out onto the water, and I was looking out onto water as well. And I woke up and I was like, he's died. I just knew it.
Oh, you didn't know at this point?
I didn't know he died at that point, but that he was hanging out with my grandmother on the dream. And then that morning, a few hours later, my dad called and he's like, you died last night. I'm like, I know. So I don't always get senses about that one was very clear.
That was clear.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that he called him on the train or something.
And the train came fast on the
something Gilly or something.
Yeah, I kind of went off a bit off.
The public transport thing's hilarious.
Yeah.
Where's the tram?
Very common. Yeah.
Is it?
So anyone that's towards their final hours with
dementia
or Alzheimer's,
they always want to reference catching public transport. I've noticed that in readings, but also now, my own experience. Because the soul, for all of us, the three of us don't know when we're going to cross over. We know we will, but we don't know when.
Don't tell me that scares me.
But Spirit never tells us anyway. But the soul of who we are, the energy that we were talking about before that lives in this vessel, it knows why it's come here. It knows its whole life journey and the key lessons and experiences it has to grow and evolve through, but it also knows how and when it will cross over.
When you meet someone and you go, and you've said it to someone, you've said it to me, you've gone, they're an old soul. People say that about other people that they meet. Where does that come from? Does that have any substance?
Absolutely. I can definitely see within children, but also adults that we meet along the way. I believe Earth, in this realm, I guess, for whatever better phrase, it kind of is like a school for us. The soul constantly will come here because there's certain lessons it needs to learn or evolve through and lived experience. And I believe some souls have been here possibly hundreds of times, maybe some a bit more new, maybe some are here for the first time. The one question that I'm unable to answer is I don't know whether they've been in the meantime or if the soul is newly created or were we all created at the same time.
So reincarnation is, in your mind, 100%?
100%, yeah. I've done even past life regression myself where I've been shown past lives.
So how far back does it go? Because you're talking a lot like the show that Marty went to. They're more current or recent deaths and grandparents and parents.
Yeah.
Is it my great grandfather? Like what's the where does it stop? Like how's it?
So I will connect with people. I like to keep it very personal and very relevant, but also things that you can prove instantly.
Sure.
So I connect with people that you've met essentially, or as far back I will go will be great-grandparents.
It's about personal connections.
It's all about personal connection.
Okay.
So I can connect with great-grandparents, but only if they met you, or even if they knew about you. So even if your mum was pregnant with you, that's the connection that we make.
Yes.
But we're not connecting with great-grandparents because I honestly don't believe they're there anymore.
No. Okay.
The soul has either moved on somewhere else or it has actually reincarnated again.
So you said you were discovered, if you will, by this woman as like a disciple, or however you want to call it. So you've said that you think we all have it in us. So have you met people and gone, yeah, you could do this? Like, how many people have you come across with this skill?
A live show. There was a girl that I could feel in the front row that I felt had the ability. So, to use the phrase that I used before, like everyone can sing, maybe not everyone sounds like Pavarotti. Like everyone can do it, but you can always sense when I sit down with someone in a reading sort of environment, you can always tell if they're essentially a bit more, inverted commas, gifted than the average person. So, I mean, it comes up in my readings quite often. Even if I sit down with friends of mine, you can always tell, like, even if you don't have your gut feeling, intuition, it's solid, clearly, because I've always been able to already show throughout life.
Well, his mummy lives it. Linda walks in our office and she will tell us straight away what's off.
Exactly.
Yeah, my mum's very connected, but also, I think that she also has a lot of regrets for not unlocking that potential younger and following her ability, her gut feel, her read on people is like unquestionable. But she's also, I know, held herself back. And if my mum had her time over again, she probably would have delved into it a little bit deeper a little earlier.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing as well for all of us to look back. But it's a great lesson at the same time for everyone also listening. Like, if you're feeling things, if you're sensing things, like, don't hold back. I'm a perfect example of that because I was the natural skeptic who didn't necessarily believe in it. But once I realised I did have that ability that was more natural than other people, I think it was that curiosity that forced me, voluntary forced myself to do it. But
well, do you know why I've never seen an issue with believing this sort of stuff? It's because, you've got people every week that go to a church, say on a Sunday, and pray and put time and energy and effort into a spiritual being that they've never seen, touched, felt, or smelt. But yet they want to not connect with people that, were once part of their lives through somebody that can connect with them, such as a medium, whether it's you or not. There are people that have that gift. So I think that if there's anyone out there listening that may have lost someone, that may not have closure, I know someone that's lost, a person through a really unfortunate circumstance, and the closure that she was able to get through meeting with you has actually affected her life massively because they just want those answers, and you can't get answers from someone that is deceased if you don't have the skill to be able to tap into that. And she said to me categorically, I can move on because of what you've been able to convey back to her. So, it's one of those things. You've got church, you've got faith, you've got belief systems, but shit, if you want some answers, then connect with a medium. If it's not David, then it's going to be someone else that has that ability to do it. Do it.
I think for a lot of people as well, there is also that fear that they're getting taken advantage of, or especially because it is something that is so personal and it is so, for a lot of people, very raw as well, because there are a lot of unhealed emotions, a lot of unhealed feelings around it as well. So there's sort of that, what I've noticed, especially when I maybe have read people that aren't necessarily as open, there is that sort of trepidation because they are a little bit fearful in some ways to sort of cross that boundary. And there's that natural fear about getting taken advantage of, yes, but then there's also that connection where maybe even worried about what gets brought up or sort of will come forward into readings in some ways as well. Because they have natural guilt, they have natural fears.
Well, just on that, because I know that the person we were talking about before, and I'm sure a lot of people you read, it's actually not just about the connection with the people around them, because often there's gut feels on people's lives, what they're doing, what they're going to do, choices they should make. Don't do this, don't do that. Where does that come from? Because that's not necessarily from spirit.
That's a great question. Because that was the reason why I actually came and saw you. I was recovering from my ill health.
It's a tough time.
It was really tough. I had just come back, or I was about to go to Gwingana after Shura had arranged for me to go away and just switch off after literally just going hell for leather for 6 years flat out. And I was at a really low point, and I wasn't coming to see you to connect with dead people. I was actually just coming to see you to just get a bit of a gist on what was I doing? Where was I going? You know, I was having a bit of an identity crisis with, you know, not listing and selling anymore, being overweight, being ill, hitting my head against the wall with trying to figure out how to grow this business. I had some opportunities that, you know, I had missed that was outside of real estate, and I was just like, Dave, what the fuck's going on? And everything that you had said that would be presented to me over that next 3 to 6 month period all fell into place. And I think you probably remember the phone call that I made to you. I came back from Gwingana, and there was certain calls that I had received and some certain opportunities that were put in front of me that you had actually said were going to happen. And they were quite specific. You had no idea what was going on. And how did those things come to you? Like, how on earth, if you weren't speaking to spirit, how did you see those things unfolding? Because they did unfold, and they were so specific that it is quite mind-blowing.
So when I connect, I'm connecting with your loved ones. So as I was saying, your family, your friends. Once we build that connection and they show you that it is them, and they can, through their own ways of how they'll prove it to you, it's then that we'll talk about life. So not only is the reading about connection with spirit, but it is also about guidance. It's about clarity. It's about providing answers on certain things, or mostly guidance on big topics in our lives. And that comes directly from your loved ones in spirit.
But that's forward thinking.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I get you saying, oh, you know, your grandma says don't do that. That's a past.
Yeah.
But saying there's an opportunity coming, you should... But by the way, I should say, the one thing in my life that I cannot explain is my mum had 2 girls. They're living in London. They had no family around, and they were done. My dad went to have a vasectomy. The doctor told him he was too young, come back in a few years. They had no plans for another child. Mum gets a knock on the door one day, and there's a gypsy at the front door. This is in London. Yeah. And she says, can I have something, just some water, some clothes? And Mum said, come. She goes, if you do it, I'll read you. And Mum is a skeptic like me. Sits at the table. I'm getting the goosebumps telling this story. Sits at the table. The woman says, read your hand. Takes my mum, reads the palm, and says, oh, a son. And Mum was like, yeah, sure. She goes, with blue eyes. Word for word, right? Read that, walked out. Mum's like, yeah, sure. A few weeks later, they're pregnant with an unexpected child.
And that's you.
Boy, blue eyes.
And that's you.
That's me.
After your dad had a vasectomy.
He went to have one, and the doctor said, don't, you're too young. This is in the 70s. This is in the 80s.
God, they really didn't want a kid.
Didn't want a kid.
They really didn't.
They did not. This was not a plan. And what I'm saying is that it's worked out well. That's when I look at.
You know, the biggest skeptic was actually predicted by a gypsy.
Was predicted by a gypsy. I know. So there are some things that are unexplained that for me that definitely sit there.
You said to me about the forward thinking was that they were my guardian angels. A guardian angel protects you, guides you, and that was those family members that had passed.
Yeah, but to answer that part about, you know, the knowledge of especially specific future events that come forward, we kind of touched on it before as well, but our life on Earth, the one that we're all currently living, the key events of that is so pre-written for us because that is our soul journey. And I always say life is classroom for the soul because we're coming here, we're born into this environment, and there's key lessons that we have to learn. It's exactly the same as going to school and learning maths, English, geography, whatever it may be. Now, even though these events haven't physically occurred for us, they are still part of our soul contract, or they are still there in the distance and future for us. So as a medium, I connect with spirit, but as a psychic, so a medium is someone who connects with spirit, and a psychic is someone who foresees and predicts the future. The psychic element, spirit will connect into because they know our journeys, or they know our pathways. Now, are they going to tell us every little thing that's going to happen? Absolutely not, because that's receiving the answers to the exam before you've even sat the subject. You know, life is the journey, not the destination. It's everything that we're doing in our daily habits that is helping us evolve and learn and teach. But from that ability for them to be able to sort of see key events in front of us, or key soul lessons that we're all going to be learning, they can then connect to someone like me and help provide guidance on that, or provide clarity around that. They won't change what we're meant to be doing, because again, that is, you know, getting the answers to the exam before we've sat the subjects. So they're not going to say, well, you can't do this, you've got to do this or this, because that's giving us the answers. But they can definitely help guide us on it. So especially with sort of key things that you had, by them telling you that in that moment, it wasn't going to necessarily radically change your trajectory, because you were already on that path already. It was just helping provide also probably guidance and clarity, but also a sense of helping ground you in some ways, because maybe you were feeling very all over the shop in some ways.
All over the shop.
Exactly. So they were like, no, Marty, this is what's going to happen. Like, it was helping provide a sort of a grounding and a balance to you.
Mm.
There's going to be some people listening to this who are going to come and book you in.
So especially in the business.
Well, that's what happens.
And you know, your time is precious, and you know, connecting on this level, you know, it's definitely something that can't be forced. But you know, even just sitting here, is there anything that, you know, when you look at Shu, is there anything that you can ask him or look at, and I'm just asking this off a whim, is there any way that you can see anything or connect with Shu in this type of environment when, you know, there's cameras there?
Yeah.
There is.
Are you open to it?
Oh, I'm open. Oh, of course. I don't want to.
Do you mind if I listen?
No, let's go.
No, perfect. All right, well, it's interesting. Yeah, well, it's so funny because even coming onto this podcast, I didn't even think about it. I was like, well, you have a David the Medium on. You probably want me to do a read.
Well, I just thought of it.
Perfect.
Do you know only why? Because I could see that as we've been talking, even Shuey's shoulders just started to drop, and when you got the goosebumps talking about your mum's story, I thought, well, you know what? That is an opening where you just never know.
Well, let's go in. So, as I was saying, when I read people, I close my eyes and I kind of tune the frequency, and they know that I'm working. Instantly for you, we did have an older female that's sort of coming forward, and she does come forward on my my left-hand side. So this will be on the mother's side of the family. Mm-hmm. There's a reference of, I don't know whether she was a singer, but she's referencing the singer Adele, because she's like, oh.
That's.
But she, there's definitely an element of Adele, like singing. I don't say her name's Adele.
My grandma's name was Adele.
It just clicked. Perfect.
The mum's name is Adele.
Yeah, and this was all actually kind of coming forward energetically when we started talking about your story there.
That's actually very weird.
Oh, fuck. And that's a fucking weird name.
That's not a normal name.
No.
Well, she showed me this thing. So this is also a good example of what Spirit will do when I don't know someone by that name personally. They will.
That's very weird. That's very weird.
Because she says, no, when Marty said this to him, Dave, he was expecting him to step forward. And you let him know his grandfather is still here, but that's his dad's dad. I'm his mum's mum. And he's wanting to say hello as well, but where's the Swedish or Ukrainian heritage for you?
No Swedish, but Ukrainian.
Yeah, I can see a lot of blue and yellow. And that would be dad's side?
There's actually a bit on both, to be honest with you.
Okay. And it's not like, I know you're the one that brought it up, but like, you were thinking about, I mean, I imagine you probably would have me on the podcast anyway, but there's a reference of like, not the nervousness or the trepidation around it, but when he says, when Dave is going to connect with him, I don't want him to think that it's not us. We didn't know whether we were going to be here or not. There's a reference of the two girls, and I think you said you got two sisters in. I don't know if you said that already, actually. Is there a Wes? W-E-S?
That's my brother-in-law.
Married to the sister.
Perfect.
And so mum's mum is stepping forward quite strongly, Adele. We've got dad's dad making his presence very clear as well. Now, dad's your paternal grandfather. Your dad's earth side, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Perfect. He takes on a very, very strong fatherly role for you. Like, it's sort of like you said, no, Dave, this is my man. Now, I know you're not wearing a ring at the moment, but he puts his hand right on top of your hand like this and actually rubs my ring. So I don't know whether there's an element of well, it has to be jewelry actually, because he's also rubbing through here, but like a ring or a watch that was passed down. Now, maybe with your dad, absolutely, because obviously that's his son, but it's kind of like he puts his hand on top of yours. There's a very strong reference of like, what? He says, when's Shura? He says, when's he going to New York?
To go to New York.
He says he has to go where I used to live.
My paternal grandfather.
This is dad's dad.
He did live in New York.
Is there any talk about family about going to New York soon?
Well, my sister lived in New York.
There's something about the family catching up, or something about going to New York. Because he says there has to be the reference of Now, I don't know whether he was actually in Manhattan or not, but he's sort of referencing... he was referencing the island, so
Yeah.
was he living in Manhattan?
My grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in Manhattan.
Yeah. He says, I'm so glad we're doing this. He says, I never really talked about this stuff because he says, I was more a man of science. But he says, looking into how life was and looking into how people reacted, he says, I always knew that this was real.
Mm.
And he says, there's been enough experiences over my life. This was the man that was 100 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
103.
Yeah. He says, there's so many experiences over my life, Dave. Where he's like, if I can show my main boy, which is you, who says, take everything on board. He says, but I'm always with you.
Mm.
I think Henry is very loud as well, but only you want to say that.
Henry, yeah.
Unless you can connect with it. But you can't instantly, don't worry.
No, Henry. Not that
Or
one.
Alan? Like Alan, something like
Ellen.
that. Alan?
Ellen.
Perfect.
That's my grandmother.
Yeah, perfect. And there's also an Adrian as well.
That's my middle name. It's my mum's brother.
I'm sorry about that. In spirit. Okay. Because it has to be coming forth from up here, and your middle name. Now, Adrian wasn't very old when he passed over. I'm 30. One of my mid-30s, but Adrian doesn't put that on to me.
He didn't. He died in his 20s.
Okay. We had some fun. I imagine at that age you never met him.
Never met him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because, there's an element of the handshake, but if he's in his mid-20s, you're either going to be very young or not born.
My mum's brother, yeah.
So know that he also makes his presence clear as well. Now, I know you mentioned him being in his 20s, but he also does reference passing very quickly at the same time as well. But he sort of references taking responsibility for passing. So usually when spirit does that, it can be actions, causes, consequences of life decisions that ultimately lead to them crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
I can't breathe a lot, so I don't know where that issue's going on with the chest. But he also says that it wasn't my fault. How did he cross over? Do you know?
He committed suicide. Yep. Yep. And he had some mental health issues, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that would be the element of taking responsibility.
Mm.
And your grandfather, again, such a strong energy. He says, sure, you need to get back to weddings. So you're an MC, I already know that.
Yes.
Do you do many weddings?
Yes.
Yeah. He's apparently to get back into it. Even more.
Marty's like, no. We're on the opposite.
But he's incredibly proud of you as the elder, being the guide of all the older men. So this will be as a father in particular. He says we can have 3. How many children do you have? Because I know you're a dad.
2.
2. Do you want 3?
No. I've had the vasectomy. My dad never did. I've had the vasectomy before. My dad never did.
I'm glad I got that on camera before you said it. So you guys like that. Incredibly proud of you as a father as well. But he says, Dave, I was always so lucky throughout life. He says, but I understand there's no such thing as luck. He says, we create our own journeys. We create our realities. You told my boy that. But he says, I'm just so glad that I was able to have or be in his life for as long as I was. When did he unfortunately cross over?
It was last year.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, because to be in your life as long as I was.
My entire life.
Yeah. And he says, you can tell George is pregnant.
George is pregnant.
Or Georgia.
George is my sister.
Okay. He goes, not her.
She's certainly ain't pregnant.
Yeah.
She's 43 with 2 kids.
Yeah.
George.
Might be your sister, but then when you said it, he went, not her. I don't know whether mum's side of the family had Alzheimer's or dementia as well, but there's a cloudiness sort of coming forward there. The Adele that we were talking to before instantly apologises because she says, I wished I got to spend more time with Shura. I wasn't able to see him all the time, but that's family dynamics. It's okay, I wasn't well. And sort of like don't feel bad by not getting to see me enough or not getting to spend enough time. Where on mum's side is the Alzheimer's or dementia though? Because there is a cloudiness that sort of comes forth there.
trying to think.
Someone's also smoking as well.
Yeah, there's plenty of that.
God, it's like taking a drag into cigarettes.
Yeah, she smoked actually. Alzheimer's and mental health. Because
I've got the shakes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who in that side of the family has. There's certainly mental health things and late stage.
I'm retired.
I mean, she was a tricky woman, Adele. But I didn't see her a lot.
It's definitely. I mean, there's the acknowledgement of like her apologising for that, because it's the understanding of, I mean, he's living his own life. I mean, you were an adult when she crossed over anyway, because I don't reference you as like a young child or anything like that. But it's sort of the dynamics of, don't feel bad about not seeing me, because, I mean, it's her way or the highway in a lot of ways anyway. I mean, I know you reference her as being tricky. Her word is, she says blunt, but, I'm just going straight down the line. But she says, I made it hard for my daughter. Now, that would be your mother.
Yes.
She's thankful for Anne? What's your mum's name?
Angela.
Ange, okay. Well, she was saying Anne. But she references that even though I made it hard for Ange, it's sort of like she was still always there. And it's sort of like, she says, Dave, but as I got older with my family, she had 3 kids.
My grandmother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of them was Adrian.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, and 2 girls.
Yep.
Yeah. Because she says, with my, the kids, which, I mean, we're referencing the 2 girls anyway, which makes sense because they were the 2 that were there when she crossed over. It's sort of like, it's kind of like I want to push them away to see how much they would still give me their time or their energy. So it's kind of like a test. It's sort of like, it doesn't matter how much they give me, Dave, I'm always still kind of trying to push them away, but I'm so thankful for having them there. So especially for Ange, it's like, let my daughter know that I'm so grateful for her for never giving up on me properly, even though she felt like she had. But she says, I'm grateful for her because she was always still there. Adele, for me, does reference Parcel quite sort of peacefully, for want of a better word. Like, I feel unwell, but then I feel like I also pass in my sleep. Like, it's real kind of just...
She actually died at Mum's home. Mum was looking after her at the end, yeah. Yeah.
There's a real element of just peacefulness and comfort around her passing. So especially if she's in Angela's home, it's again the element of thank you, because it's, even though I'm sort of pushing away or making things really difficult, she never gave up. Now, your other auntie loves it, but she also couldn't be fucked with it, to be fair. And she says the eldest girl. So, and who's the eldest out of the daughters?
My mum.
Yeah, perfect. So, which makes sense because there's the element of disconnection with the eldest. And then Adrian, I think, was probably the youngest. So the other auntie would be the middle child. Yeah, perfect. But your grandfather's knocking them all out of the way because he just wants his time with you. And he says, there's too many bloody Davids here. He says, you're David. He's David. Your middle name wasn't David.
No, my dad's name's David.
So, who's the other David? Because there's 3.
No, my mum has a cousin David, dad's side.
Someone came into the family?
David.
I don't know whether it's in spirit or not, but there's a reference of these all coming down.
I think of it like David.
And also just for you, at the same time as well, focus on spleen health. So, I mean, I know you're not sick at the moment, but like, I don't know whether you've been feeling everyone's feeling run down at the moment in particular, but I keep getting sharp pains through the spleen area, which is usually to do with just general health or kidneys even. I'm not worried about your kidneys. Like, when we talk about health, it's not a warning, but it's more so just things just to sort of focus on. So they just want you to focus more on general health, yes, but also kidney health.
Okay.
Has anyone in the family had kidney issues?
Yes, my dad.
Okay. Doesn't feel bad at the moment. How is he at the moment?
Is he okay?
Yeah, look, because I'm not worried about his kidneys at the moment. So there's, I'm not saying that it's anything that's considered genetic or hereditary, but they just want you to keep on top of that as well. When grandfather crosses over, again, I mean, I know he was in his hundreds, but very, very peaceful passing, because he says, Dave, after the long life that I lived, where I was able to do so much of everything I want. It's this reference to Jerusalem in my head as well, which would probably be a reference to Jewish heritage. He says, what happened to the shop? Even if I don't know when their own family had a shop. I mean, they probably did, of course.
His family did, yeah.
Yeah. He's very drawn to jewellery, but I don't think the shop was a jewellery shop. Like,
No.
he said, I named it after me, so I don't know whether that makes sense with you or not. It couldn't be, well, maybe the name of the shop either. And he says, after everything I was able to do, he says, I'm so glad that my boy, which is you, is able to still, he says, I'm honoured that he uses me as a guider in life still. Or to be able to, when, he calls you Shu as well, like he says, when Shu wants to achieve things, he says, I'm so honoured and grateful that I can still be the one in the back of his mind to sort of balance it off. He says, not that David hasn't done anything, Dave, he's a good man as well. And he says, it's like you were telling him and Martin. It's like you were telling him and Martin before. He says, I just want to guide. And he says, I just want to protect and guide him now. And I'm just grateful that he can use me as an example and a motivation. And he says, I do love you. Tell him I love him. And he says, he's going to see me tomorrow. Not in a death sense.
No.
He shows you on a plane, actually, so I don't know whether you've just booked anything or whether you've got a trip coming up. But I mean, you guys travel a long time anyway. But there's a reference of the next time that you're travelling. Are you going to Europe this year at all?
There's discussion. My wife wants to go to Paris in June. She wants to go without me, but because her father's at the Olympics.
And it's not bad.
No.
Because you're there still. But the reason I bring it up, because he's showing you on a plane, but it's sort of like the next time that you're on a plane, there's going to be a man who is a spitting image of your grandfather.
He's on a plane on Wednesday.
With the spitting image of Marty, his brother.
He did say tomorrow, though. But that was
Yeah.
Elmer Connection tomorrow, but you're on a plane on Wednesday. Or in West. Where are you going Wednesday, Perth?
Adelaide.
Oh, still going west. Okay. I don't know whether that's it again, even though he's still... But even as we say Adelaide, it doesn't feel like connects. But there's something about being at an airport or being on a plane where there will be this spitting image of your grandfather that for that instant second you know about, and then you're like, it's not actually him. That is his way of just showing you that I'm right there. There's also... don't tell me his name. Did you say his name?
Haven't said
No, because I'm going to call him Rob or Ron or something like that, like a rot sound. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good.
What's his name?
Ron.
Perfect.
Far.
He's like, I don't smoke. I'm like, well, I don't know. That's coming from mum's side. Where it may even be at the airport where someone will yell like, hey, Ron. And then you'll be like, he's going to make it very clear who is around you in that moment. How do I explain that? So when Spirit does things like this, it's... it's all well and good to talk about things that have already happened or things that may be going on in life, but they love to bring up things that are going to happen as proof and validation that they are around us. That's exactly what Ron is wanting to do by bringing up things that will happen as proof for you that I'm here. And he says, all right, Dave, he says, I'm a man that gets to the point. He says, you tell him I love him, he has to go back to work.
On the podcast.
He says, send my love to the girls, which will be your sisters. Leah. I don't know if that's on mum's side or not.
There would be a Leah somewhere, I imagine.
Yeah, like Lee. I'm saying like L-E-I. So it's like Leia.
Leah?
Got
a cousin.
On what side of the family?
That's my dad's sister's grandchild.
Oh, so he's on that side, okay.
And she's Leah specifically, not Leah. Spelled Leah.
Okay. Usually they'll show, the name doesn't come on that often, but I was actually expecting to probably see the Star Wars for that reference a bit. So they sounded it out.
That's Ron's great-granddaughter.
Perfect. He says, there's too many, I can't keep up. He says, but I'm pretty good with family, Dave. He says, I always had time, or they were always coming to me. He says, they're all as important as each other, even the new generation coming forth. He's also singing happy birthday, so I don't know whether everyone in the wider family has a birthday right now or just about to happen. Probably over April, I would suggest.
My sister just had her birthday.
When was that?
What day is it? Last week?
Yeah, perfect.
The audience at home are like, we know about Shura now.
No, I always say as well, with just because we're on a podcast as well, if there's any, like, when it comes to the reading element, feel free to include whatever you want, like the whole thing, whatever works best for you. Someone up there has a birthday that's either just happened or just coming up as well, because the candle just got blown out. Now, with Adrian or any of the grandparents, if you don't know their birthdays instantly, don't worry. But it's either someone just had.
Yeah, I don't know Adrian's birthday actually. I'd have to ask my mum when
I think
Adrian's
it's probably
birthday
more
was.
of a female, so it could be more of a grandmotherly reference, or I mean, don't tell me who, but if there's any other females in spirit, either they've had a birthday that's just going to happen or just has, but it has to be around the April or mid-April period. The only reason I know that because they blew out the candles, so I guess it has to be a birthday in spirit because it's then blowing out the candles. When they reference birthdays down here, the candles always lit. So that's some homework for you. But again, it's just because they want to show things that even if you don't know it instantly, it's still validation that they can prove to you. But Ron in particular, like I said, very, very much to more like the son than the grandson. Incredibly proud of you as a father. He says, the thing that I love about Shuey, Dave, is that he will always dip his feet into everything. He says, this is a man, though, who is a master of all trades at the same time. He says, I'm just proud of you. He says, don't ever stop doing what you're doing. And he says, one day you'll own it all as well.
Own it all.
And no, he says, well, no one. He says, the past now. When those some Jewish faith reverends, the past will be passed over. That's not far away, I don't think.
Monday.
Oh, okay. So I thought. So I can imagine it was obviously family connection or family gets here this throughout that period. He says, your parents need to talk. They still together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, perfect. Well, when I go like that, that's actually small for connection. He says they just need to talk to each other. He says, I know that they still love each other, but they need to talk about where they're at. He says nothing can't be sorted just by everyone talking. He says that was always my thing, Dave. He says I just wanted to talk to everything. He says I'm off to Jerusalem now. I'm like, okay. He says I always wanted to go. He says I got to go. But he says that I still spend a lot of time there. There's something. He lives in Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been acknowledged in Jerusalem somehow, so I don't know whether there's like a plaque for him or whether there's a spot for him or I mean, I understand obviously the connections to the Jewish faith and the holy city, but there has to be something where he's literally there, and I don't think it's ashes or I don't think he was buried there or anything like that, but just a yes or no, does that make sense?
Yes, I mean he's certainly been there many times.
Yeah, he's been honoured there though. This is the only thing, because there's a reference of as the soul crosses over, there's the element of honouring me in the Holy Land.
I can't tell you with any certainty, but he was certainly very well regarded in his space.
What was his? Yeah, what was? Yeah,
Psychology.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Or human mind.
But he was very strongly Jewish,
Yeah.
much more than any of the rest of our family.
Yeah. Oh, he's got more of the, which I guess is a lot more prevalent in the older generations of, but that real Zionist kind of connection, which is, he does want you to have it though, so no pressure. And he says, no, but I'm honoured there, Dave. And he says, it's coming. When did he cross over again?
Mid last year.
There's going to be something that comes up, and maybe it is because of his professional space. I understand that he probably hasn't worked for a very long time, but he's 103 when he crossed over. But there's an acknowledgement of work that he's done, but it comes from Israel. And it may have already happened, but there's something else that's about to happen. But it's the element of either, like, his name is going to be written on the stone or the ground somewhere in Jerusalem. We can cut this part out of the podcast because the bloody Palestinians. So it's not anything to them.
That'll go on well.
Yeah. So maybe we won't put that on the podcast. I'm just going to say, at some point in your life, there's something about either you being in Israel, and it's not like accepting it on his behalf, but there's the acknowledgement of people that you will talk to that will acknowledge Rob. So either they knew of him, or they knew him, or they understand that you're his grandson. Now, I can only imagine you probably don't have any plans to go to Israel anytime soon, but it's definitely coming up over the next few years.
Okay.
Any connection with Mount Scopus? The school?
Just friends who went there, that's really it.
I know that you actually know, but you just showed me Sarah Greenberg. I don't know a maiden name. Do you know Sarah Greenberg?
Yes, Sarah. I can't do her last name.
And why you show me her though? And she says, all right, get the shoulder out. He says, not one for, I like that. He's like, not one for wasting time. He says, I just like to talk. And he says, you tell him I love him and thank Martin for looking after him. Your grandfather's very personal. Like, he's very, very likeable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even for, he shows himself as a bit of a younger man. He says, I've got my brown hair back. 103, he was probably, if he had hair, he was probably grey. But he's very, very charismatic. Like, he's definitely the kind of person you sit down with and you just, like, you want to hear his stories. Like, 103 anyway, but he just has that, he's kind of like you in a lot of ways. He has that ability to sort of sit down with someone and instantly connect with them within, like, a minute. And he says it's a gift, Dave, because he says, I understand the mind, I like people. He says, don't tell them I like them, though. He says it's best to leave people guessing. He says, look after your father. And your dad has a sister and a brother. Mm-hmm. He's referencing the boys, but has to be the girl. And then he's holding up 3. Auntie, for you also, you should probably get on top of heart health. Has she had that already?
No, I have to go through her history, but nothing like a heart attack or anything like that.
It's not a warning either. It's just reference to I can feel my heart pumping.
Right.
It's also emotional stress for her at the moment as well. We don't have to go too deep into that, but there's probably someone else that's also stressing her in life.
Yes, she would have a lot, yes.
He blames the bloody kids. So he says, you tell them I love them or all they're going to go. He says, just let Shura know the best is yet to come. Real fish taste, that's suddenly fun. Like a real, when do you do matzo balls?
Well, my grandmother used to make them. I don't like them very much, to be honest with you.
Is that for Passover though, or was that more?
Mate, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not good with it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, because I can taste it suddenly. I'm not Jewish, but yeah. Yeah, you're going to be seeing him this week. Like, it's either him or someone yells out Ron, like, very loudly in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, it was quite fascinating to watch.
Now I can feel my whole body getting heavy again. Yeah,
like to think that you know nothing really about Shu. You got his grandfather's name. You said he was in science. We've just found out he's a psychologist.
the man of mind. Yeah.
Adele, his great grandmother or grandmother, the siblings, passing of your uncle, like. There's a few things in there that were like quite fascinating to watch. I don't know how you do it.
Surprised you haven't had it read before, to be very fair, because even with your energy, there's the element of this real sort of, like, I'm not saying that you're a medium. Oh, everyone is, but I'm not saying to you like the medium said to me, but your energy is very centered and flowing. And you usually wouldn't see that, especially in a man who hasn't necessarily delved into this. Like with you, it was fine, because you'd already had read it, you were open to it.
But what was funny, what I liked was that I've seen Shura talk about his grandfather and how people would congregate and how he was so well liked. And the fact that you're saying that he's such a liked person, that he's so open, that he loves talking. Like, I've heard Shura talk about his grandfather more than his own dad.
Well, he looks at you more like a son than a grandfather. Yeah.
So it's just bizarre that you can pick that up like that. Yeah.
Very gentle man that controlled the room still.
Very gentle man.
But like, he's not that abrupt controlling, but he still runs the room without you knowing he does.
So what's it like hearing this sort of stuff?
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. There's some stuff in there that was very interesting. I mean, he was certainly, his grandchildren were always around him. I was his only grandson, by the way. And
His boy.
yeah, I was his boy. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to explain.
How do you explain what you just experienced?
And you know, it's funny. I'd like to do that in an environment that's less of this. There's a lot going on here, and we're on this, and it's it's quite personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to explain some of that stuff. It's hard to explain some of that.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's like, unless you live it.
And and to be fair, not everything I go, yeah, that's 100% accurate. But that's okay. I think there's things that maybe you hear and it's it's interesting.
But for so many names that you can pluck out of the world and so many personas and so many different things that you can do, how you get so specific is the part that
I love it.
It's that specificness that freaks people out.
And, especially, coming from the environment that I understood life to be. Like, when I do something like this, I aim for specificity because I don't want it to be fucking woo-woo. Like, I want everyone to understand this is actually normal life. Something that I say regularly, it's not supernatural. It doesn't be just supernatural. We're just not exposed to it.
Like, you just had a chat to his granddad.
Yeah. So, and maybe I become so immune to it, and I'm like, oh yeah, just talk to his granddad. Like, so even I kind of sometimes miss kind of
the gravity of it.
Exactly, the gravity of it all as well. And
I
always
kind of wish that I wasn't here and that the cameras weren't there so that you could have asked more questions.
Yeah.
I felt like, you know what, if I didn't ask that question at that point in time,
Yeah.
he probably never would have said yes.
No, and it's a great point as well that you make as well, because I say this in readings regularly as well, but the world that we live in, if I was to type Shura Taft into Google, like there are things that come up about you. I don't get
Of course.
Facebook.
I was thinking, I wonder if Adele's out there. Would you find, how easy would you find my grandmother's
that's
name?
The thing. So, depending on, if they crossed over, 50 years ago, obviously before the internet, it's a bit different. But, there's things that are out there now as well. But what I find, and what I aim for when I do readings, like 95 plus 99% of what gets brought up. As I was saying before, there are things going on in your life. There's things that you're thinking, things that you're feeling. There's also future things that haven't happened. So there's always things that if we were to Google someone or look at their Instagram or their Facebook or their LinkedIn, like we're all very electronically connected.
Yes.
So taking that into mind, especially as the modern medium, like I still want to be able to bring up things that aren't going to be in the public space.
Yes.
Because for me, proof and validation is more important than anything else. And as I said, you don't have to believe what I do, but listen to what I say. But I want everyone to know your loved ones are around you. Whether you know it or not, they are helping to guide you. They are helping to support you. They are still a part of your life, even though they're not physically in their shelter.
Oh, I couldn't believe it anymore.
So,
I feel very lucky to have had a session. I don't know if I'm getting a bill after for that session. It was very good. We can talk for a long time. David, we really appreciate you coming on, and I do believe there'll be some people who will watch this and you'll be getting some phone calls because that's pretty wild.
I know what the promo's going to be.
Yeah.
I think him doing on the spot like reading.
Shura's like drained.
And I honestly thought you were going to say no. So the fact that you did it,
Yeah.
it felt right. I saw Shu get the goosebumps, and I thought this is the chance. So thank you so much for doing what you do, and for Shui for being receptive, and hopefully you now believe in this very unique part of.
I'm going to be listening out for Ron. I'll tell you what.
And also, Shui, one final thing. Like, it's all well and good to sit down with me and have me pass on things. I now want you to test them. Start asking them for signs. Start asking them questions. Like, talk to Ron like he's right in front of you, because his energy is.
Okay.
So it's all well and good for me to pass on stuff. Allow him to now show you that he's there. And for everyone listening as well.
I love it.
Start testing them.
David the Medium. So people can just book you through website, through your Instagram, through whatever.
Through my website. So all my availability, when I do have availability, is at davidthemedium.com. And follow along on Instagram and TikTok at David the Medium, and
Love it.
general updates and spiritual
Well, it's been
guidance.
it's been a fascinating with the Fox. You love it, though. This is Marty's world, the spiritual world. Of course, remember you can catch us at any podcasting platform, on YouTube and on Instagram and whatnot. And great to be with the Fox again. David, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.